I think there's been an erosion within our culture of what should be accepted and what shouldn't be accepted. I think that's how we got here. Um, with my friends and growing up, and even with our married friends now or people that we know, this whole sensationalized word of trauma constantly on YouTube. I know people go through things and have experiences in life that they may need therapy for, but to say that Black people are just always walking around so traumatized, I completely disagree with that. I think it's a cop out to constantly be saying that. Um, our children in this generation were not raised correctly by their parents and their grandparents. It's not going all the way back to slavery because when I grew up, the neighborhoods were safe. Okay. When I went to high school and when I was riding my bike around, it was not, my parents weren't worried. It was no worry. So there's been an extreme erosion. I'm sure social media and other factors have played a part in that, but people aren't raising their children anymore. We always talk about women being raised to be wives, men being raised to be husbands. That's not happening. On top of the fact, kids are being raised with no core values, no real moral compass. Life isn't valued within our community as a whole, and that didn't happen from when we got out of slavery. We valued our lives. We fought for our lives. We fought for other lives. So I'm tired of, I don't like to hear this downtrodden of a Black person because I'm a Black person. I'm proud to be Black. I love my culture. I love how I grew up. I love my friends and family. We are strong. We're educated. We love Black men. We love Black women. And so I'm tired of hearing, and I don't know if it's a difference between like region, because I grew up in Louisiana and y'all don't have exposure to slavery more than me. I'm sure nobody on this panel was going to plantations for school trips in elementary school like I was. You were too, Shan. Okay, Georgia. All right, Aisha. So I've been exposed to the trauma of my history and my people my entire life. But somehow I've been able to have a positive outlook on my future, my community's future, but I'm also a realist. So we have to get to a point where we're understanding this. A lot of the stuff that we are going through right now is self-inflicted. It's not self-inflicted from our ancestors. A lot of this stuff has to deal with molestation within generations, generational curses, abuse within the families, those type of things that, yeah, they may have been started generations and generations ago, but at what point are we going to break that chain and break that cycle and be better and take responsibility and ownership? I definitely understand the therapist and what she's saying as far as people make excuses for things and how they can look like a personality trait or a family condition. And people may, oh, that's just how she is, or that's just how that family is. Well, that's BS. Because at some point, that family, that individual person needs to be told, okay, I understand what you went through or what may be in your bloodline, but you have to break that cycle and you have to take responsibility for how you are showing up as a person in this world. You have to take responsibility for that. But I have more to say, but I'll land my plane there.
I agree with you on you gotta take personal responsibility first, but I vehemently disagree with you on the foundational root causes. Like when you could draw, because you could draw clear timelines in history and our interaction with the dominant society throughout each generation, right? So there was like post-slavery, they post-slavery, the family unit was more intact. But that trauma that we talking about, it was fresh out. They just got out of slavery. They raised
So
those
Marcus,
kids.
how do we get to the Cosby era and the different world era and the boomerang era where Black people in the late 80s and early 90s were completely thriving and winning in this country? How do we go from from slavery to Jim Crow, civil rights, all of this stuff, to then we're thriving families, communities, even after all the bombings and destroying of our own personal towns and all of this stuff. We've kept overcoming as well as maintain community even through all of that real trauma. What we're going through now within our communities is self-inflicted. It's not the thumb. We're not Jim Crow. We're not, oh, you can't walk in that and drink from that water cup. We're not going through that. We double talk a lot of times within our community. Black men make so much money and Black people are winning and Black women are bosses and all of this stuff. It's like we can say that on that point, but then when it comes to family and community, we're so downtrodden. We're so beaten down. We're so weakened by the white man and our trauma from slavery. We can't talk out of both sides of our mouth. And we do that on YouTube. It doesn't make sense.
So my explanation for that would be, so like for you, for existence, right? Like your parents were intact, and then you're not a byproduct of a drug era. Like your parents didn't fall victim, so that would be self-assisted.
My parents didn't, but their siblings did.
Now, did they kids turn out differently than your parents' kids? I don't know they siblings. I just know your brothers and sisters. Your brothers.
I have 3 cousins right now whose father was on drugs from the army his entire life, and all 3 of them are married with children.
That's good. I know a lot of people who did not have that same story, who came from that type of trauma through the drug epidemic, who kids who raised themselves who end up dying early, like real early, or going to jail for a long time. And like my life is kind of unique in that way, where I like lived in the suburbs for a little while when I was young, and I stayed in the city. So I got the whole gambit of those friends, and I'm looking at the different circumstances. And the kids who was wards of the state, raised in foster care, parents was addicted to drugs. Their mom was buying rocks from one of the guys that was out there working or stealing their pack. And now they got a whole different trajectory than the kids that was not affected by that. Those kids that was affected by it have kids, and those are the kids that everybody call them YNs. Like I see the trajectory from the beginning into those people, and the beginning into the people that broke off and wasn't affected by that portion of it, and how that looks. It manifests itself as classism at this point, but it's not actually classism. And from what I've observed, it's a direct, like I seen a study a long time ago that said if a man, like you can have a good family history, right? And if a man went to jail, the patriarch of the family went to jail, let's say in the 70s, right? That completely changed the trajectory of that familial timeline and of that family, based off them no longer having the income resources. Or
I agree with you with that.
So the drug epidemic, which was self-assisted, right? We also got trades removed from school, so people did not have the same jobs. Education price skyrocketed, and there was a war against detailed war against Black America by the CIA. And what's his name? It slipped my name right now. Maybe somebody in the chat knows the name, for the who was the director who instituted that, when they instituted the war on drugs, which was really a war on Black America, because they infused the drugs, which is why I say self-assisted, because we didn't have to sell them, we didn't have to take it, but we also didn't. We coming off of fighting this fight. The leaders was killed at this point. The people that were in those movements had extreme depression, and then they turned to drugs, and those political movements transferred from political action within the community to drug organizations at the tail end. Like the inception of most of the gangs was like Black civil rights progressive movements, and then they transitioned over time into gangs and drugs and what we see today. And at one
Bro,
point,
you're talking about a drug epidemic. She didn't bring the drug. She was talking about slavery. So
what
y'all
I'm
talking
saying is
about
what I'm saying is these. So slavery leads into Jim Crow. Jim Crow leads into the civil rights movement. The civil rights movement leads into the drug epidemic. It's been a constant battle. It's like a Cold War kind of that's been going on. Right now, it's self-inflicted and it's self-replicating. And at this point, it's us doing these things independent of other people. What I'm saying is I could see the line into up until this point, how it all got here, and how the people who didn't get affected by it navigated out of it by whatever. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So